Chase looked around to see if anyone was watching them. "Shouldn't you be hiding that?" "Relax," Parker frowned, turning it over. "It's just a piece of junk." A broad, tired-looking waitress slouched up to their table. "What'll it be?" she asked. "My young friend here will have the Nevna Fizz, and I'll have a pint of your best Lyolean ale," said Parker. The waitress arched an eyebrow, muttering something under her breath as she walked away. Parker set the badge on the table and leaned back in his chair. "So anything coming back to you yet?" Chase shook his head. "I'll have to wait and see what else Dr. Silvestri can find out." He paused, examining his hands. Now was the time to start asking questions. "So what exactly does Asa do?" "I told you, he owns a tech corporation. That's all I know." "Why?" Parker frowned. "What's he like?" Parker looked out the window. "Actually, I've never met him." "What?" Parker had already told him that Asa didn't live in the compound, but wouldn't he at least want to see his ward, to check in on how he was doing? "But he's your guardian." "He funds my existence and makes the rules, but I don't know anything about him, where he lives, what he does, what he looks like. I know he's got a lot of money, but that's it." "So you grew up with—" "Just Mina." "Yes, I was raised by a robot." Parker said this like it was funny, but there was an underlying bitterness. Dr. Silvestri only comes by every once in a while. Chase considered what this must have been like and wondered whether he'd grown up in similar circumstances. "Why did you tell me you lived alone?" "Because she's not alive." Chase opened his mouth to argue, but at that moment the waitress reappeared and set 2 glasses of foamy red liquid on the table. She turned and began to walk away. "Hey!" Parker shouted. "What is this?" She stopped and turned, placing her hands on her hips. 2 Nevnas. "I didn't order this. Bring me a Lyolean ale," Parker commanded. A deep flush was rising in his face. "You can order Lyolean ale when you're of age to order Lyolean ale. Until then, you get a Nevna." "This is ridiculous." Parker rose to his feet, puffing out his chest indignantly. "Do you have any idea who I am?" "Sure, you're the kid who's about to get thrown out of my pub," she snapped. "I'm sorry, is he giving you trouble?" said a polite, familiar voice on the right. Chase looked over with surprise. Mina stood beside him, a calm smile on her face. Parker roared in frustration and swept both glasses to the floor with a crash. Red liquid spilled out on the floor and ran under the waitress's feet. "Parker!" Mina stepped forward, placing herself between Parker and the waitress. "Please, take this with our apologies," she said, extending a handful of chips. "Get him out of here," said the waitress, shoving the money into an apron pocket. Mina seized Parker by the arm and dragged him out into the street. Chase rushed after them. Feeling every pair of eyes in the pub follow him, Parker tried to jerk his arm away from her, but she kept her grip on his wrist. "Let me go! Let me go! Let me go!" he hissed through gritted teeth. "Bravo, Parker!" She released his arm. "This was your best escape yet. All the way to Mircona. Very nice. I knew you'd figure out how to hack the cruiser eventually." "Stupid robot," he spat, rubbing his wrist. "I can't even get 5 minutes without you breathing down my neck." Mina smiled at him and turned to Chase, who stood off to the side, embarrassed by the scene. "Dr. Silvestri's been trying to contact you," she informed him. "I'll take you to see him, and then I'm going to place you in a different facility. After this incident, it's apparent you need to be in solitary confinement." Chase glared at Parker, who kept his eyes trained on the ground. This was all his fault. He'd wanted to take Chase on his stupid joyride, and now it was Chase who was going to pay for it. He lunged forward, shoving Parker in the chest. "Idiot!" "Hey!" cried Parker, although he still avoided making eye contact. "You stupid flesh jerk!" Chase shouted. "Selfish jerk, excuse me." "All right, let's—" Mina stopped abruptly, and her eyes widened the tiniest bit. She turned her back on both boys. "Can I help you?" The 2 soldiers in dark gray materialized out of the crowd, wearing matching grim expressions. "ID check, ma'am," said one of the men. The other looked past her and examined both boys, staring intently at their faces. We don't need any problems here, officer. Just a disagreement between friends. I've got the situation under control, Mina said. I'm afraid we're going to need to see your papers, the man insisted. The fleet doesn't need to get involved in this, said Mina. We'll be... Do you know a Dr. Silvestri? The other officer interrupted. Mina cocked her head. What? What took place next went so fast, it seemed like it all happened at once. The man on the left began to reach for his sidearm. Mina leapt forward, grabbing one of the soldiers around his waist and swinging him into his partner. Chase barely dodged getting hit as the soldier collided and tumbled to the ground. Mina seized one of the men by the collar and swung her leg across the other's chest, pinning them both to the ground. The crowd around them rippled as people turned to stare. Mina? Parker stood at the edge of the fight, eyes wide with shock. She looked up at them, her long hair hanging in her face. Both of you, get out of here, she yelled. Run!